Hey, what up, YouTube? First video in a while. I want to say this is what episode 12 we'll call it. Regular season is over. NIU officially finishes the season 7-5 with a 4-4 record in the MAC. For the most part, I feel like most fans, it's a weird place because the expectations were a lot higher, right? The expectations were higher. I want to say we finished last season 7-5, right? But I don't think anybody was like, man, this team should have had an undefeated season. No, I don't think that's what was going on. Right? I want to say it was Rocky Lombardi's final season. We had Antonio Brown. It was his junior season, right? Things were only going to go as far as they were going to go. In saying that, of course, when you come off of a winning season and you make a bowl game and you win your bowl game, right, are there higher expectations? Yeah. NIU was viewed as a favorite to win the MAC this year. So clearly the expectations were pretty high, right? If you look at our non-conference schedule, it was UMass, Western Illinois, Notre Dame, NC State. So even if you had us losing to Notre Dame and NC State, but you had us winning the MAC, or at least you had us making it to the MAC championship, then that means you have us probably going 2-2 in non-con games. And then you probably have us either going 8-0 or 7-1 in conference play. So if we're going 7-1 in conference play, that means this would have been a 9-win team. Or if we go 8-0, that means we're a 10-win team. If you had us winning the MAC after going 8-0 or 7-1, that means this is a 10 or 11-win team, right? So when you view it that way, that's what makes 7-5 not feel good at all, right? Because if you were to ask somebody, would you have rather been 7-5, but your 7 wins all came from MAC play? I think most of the fans probably would have been like, yeah. I think a lot of fans would have been like, yeah, because if we're 7-1 in the conference, then that means most likely, barring however tiebreakers go or whatnot, it means we're in the MAC championship. Now, I don't know who the one loss would have been to. Let's say it's still Miami, Ohio. I guess that puts us in a weird place, right? We didn't play Ohio this year, and Ohio's in the MAC championship. So, yeah, it gets kind of right? Because now you're trying to figure out, shoot, would we have been in the MAC championship? Lost to Buffalo, lost to Ball State, lost to Toledo, lost to Miami, Ohio. Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing one important game. What was that last loss? Yeah, it's throwing me off a little bit. Because we went 4-4 in conference. Well, no, I guess that's it. Yeah. I guess that's it. Those are our 4 conference losses. And then we have our 4 conference wins. So, yeah. Right? Who knows if we even still make the MAC championship. And I think that actually now when you think about that, I think people still would have traded this current season versus going 7-5 and no promise that we actually even make the MAC, right? The MAC championship. So, yeah, I mean, because like I said, at the end of the day, beating a top 5 ranked Notre Dame at home, because I mean, well, I guess it would have only been at home anyway. We wouldn't have played them anywhere else unless it had been another one of those Soldier Field games. But to beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame, that's generational. That's not even generational. That's, most people would consider that once in a lifetime, right? You can't even say generational, because generational could be me saying, you know, once every 15, 20-ish years, NIU pulls off this super major life-changing upset. When you really think about it, within a 20-year span, NIU's done some work. And that's, like, once again, that's my thing that always comes back to, once again, why NIU needs to get the hell out of this conference. Some way, somehow. Do they need to leave the conference? Yes. Should they be desperate to leave the conference? No. And I think that's what we've shown, is that it's not a desperation thing. If we end up still in the MAC, at the end of the day, we're still in the MAC. That's just what it is, right? When they said the Mountain West has interest in NIU in Toledo as football-only members, yada, yada this, yada, yada that, clearly we see it doesn't seem like NIU has taken any offer. It doesn't seem like NIU has really, because at the end of the day, anybody, right, anybody with some level of football sense and who can do some research and, you know, look at numbers, they would simply tell you the Mountain West, before their loss of teams, would have been a solid move, right? If this was, oh, the Mountain West is deciding to add NIU and Toledo for who knows what reason, right? But they're looking to add 2 teams to help bolster their conference a little bit more, right? But they're still going to be Boise State. They're still going to be Fresno State. They're still going to, right? If we would have joined a Mountain West that still had all its 12 schools, we probably would have been able to join not even just as football-only members. Because as we know what's going on, I've explained it a few times now, the Mountain West, the issue with them right now, their contract, their media rights contract is about to expire. The current payout they have was expected to go up. But because they're about to lose 5 schools, and at least 3 out of those 5 schools were considered your main attractors, right? Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, you could say, right? Those 3 being some of the main, you know, viewed schools. Like, we're talking about folks attend those games, folks on the West Coast, they watch those games. Boise State tends to end up in a national spotlight probably a little bit more than the others, right? For instance, right, this season, when you look at how it's panned out, if the Pac doesn't do what the Pac does, you end up in a situation where you have Boise, right, and they're still all committed to the Mountain West. You have all your schools, right? You have an Ashton Genty who's, in all honesty, the dude should win the Heisman. If he don't win the Heisman, this shit's rigged. Let's be straight up, right? You have Ashton Genty playing amazing football, right? This would have, like, I mean, the deal that would have been on the table for the Mountain West would have been nice, right? Because their number was going to go up. It wasn't going down. Their payout was projected to go up. Now it's different. Now there's no promise, right? Matter of fact, there's a likelihood of it not going up. There's a likelihood of a slight decrease. And that's what hurts, right? My thing from the get-go, was I pro NIU going to the Mountain West? Yes. But if you truly listen to everything I said from the get-go, it was always Mountain West if Toledo. You very rarely heard me say NIU should go solo. No. If NIU goes to the Mountain West, if we can get Toledo to come along, that's solid. And I truly viewed that as something that would have probably helped the Mountain West attract some other programs that could have helped build the conference back up. NIU and Toledo, compared to Texas State, compared to Sam Houston, UTEP, any other school that was on the Mountain West radar when it comes to football specifically, NIU and Toledo, a lot more well-established brand-wise, right? Toledo's been a MAC powerhouse, I guess you could say, for years now. Like, they've been solid, right? Toledo's always had one of the best recruiting classes in the MAC. A lot of times, right, we know the preseason, they tend to be favored a lot of times to have won their division or to win the MAC most years, right? And same thing with NIU. Typically, we're favored to either win the division or win the MAC. Very rarely have I ever seen NIU be ranked at the bottom of the list, is what I'm saying. You just don't see it that often. Like, I don't know the last time NIU was predicted to finish like, oh, they're going to finish last in the MAC. Maybe off of the 0-6 season, right? And that was COVID. Like, everything was weird. But you get what I'm saying? You get where I'm going with this? NIU and Toledo. If the Mountain West would have landed us both, I think that's when you can go and talk to a Texas State and be like, we're trying to make some things happen, right? We're not just bringing anybody in here. We're not really trying to look at going the FCS route, right? We're trying to build something up and we're trying to make something happen, right? That's when you could maybe potentially get a Texas State on board, because if they look and they're like, you know what? They were able to sell NIU and Toledo on this. This might not hurt. When you add UTEP, and then instantly, right, you will have also Texas State basically being like, nah, we're not leaving. Now it's kind of not the greatest look, because for Texas State to not even necessarily be as established, right? Let's be honest. Texas State, not super established. Texas State, I would still say pretty young FBS team, FBS program, right? They've been in FBS now for a little minute, but they're still very young, right? I want to say, when did they come up? When did they pop up? Was it 2012, 2013? Something like that? That's when Texas State, if I remember correctly, came up from the FCS. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong. But they're relatively young as an FBS program. I mean, shoot, when you go look at a school like UTSA, like, I think it might have been the last video or one before that, I sit there and I look and I'm like, how the hell? Like, I get how, but how do you have these programs that barely spent any time at the FBS level? It's like they're getting blessed. You barely have spent any time at the FBS level, but now you're in the AAC. And then now you're in talks to move to here, move to there. I get it, it's Texas. I get it, it's San Antonio. I get it, your enrollment's probably this. You probably have this attendance at your games, yada, yada, yada. But it's kind of wild. So I'm like, damn, like, NIU, what are we not doing? We need to push. We need to throw ourselves out there. Because like I said, only to see things going up. Like I said, we finished this season 7-5. We fired the OC after the Miami, Ohio game. Right? We fire the OC after the Miami, Ohio game. It's like, dude, you had essentially 2 seasons. right? In reality, if we're being honest, after your first year of running an offense, the second year is when you should see the gains, right? The first year is the install. The second year, we should be seeing gains. We should be seeing, right, this team run this offense super smooth. Like, we should be purring. We should be a brand new Cadillac. And it's just like, we saw many times this season, we saw one too many times this season, the offense end up just stalling out, being lackluster, looking like they had never played football before. So I'm like, it's bad. It's bad. I literally have said multiple times, this defense deserved better, because I'm like, not only did you have a good defense the year prior, and people forget that. That's what's crazy to me. I'm like, people forget NIU's defense was solid last year. This isn't a shock that the defense was good this year. The defense was solid last year. So that just goes to show it's no fluke that the defense was spectacular this season. Defensively, our defense has kept us in every damn game we played this year, even in the Miami, Ohio game. NIU, I'm thinking in my brain right now, there has not been a game where we can sit here and say NIU got straight blown the fuck out. There hasn't been a game. The Miami, Ohio game may have felt like we got blown out, but looking at the numbers, what was that, a 10, 11 point loss, if I remember correctly? That ain't a blowout. Were we just straight dominated because our offense couldn't do anything for some reason? Yeah. It's like, what's going on? Miami was able to pull off, like, Miami was just consistent. That's what it was. Miami, Ohio made the catches that mattered. They made catches that mattered when it mattered the most. These dudes were snagging balls out the air, right? You teach that to your receivers. Like, when you're running the ball, low man wins. When you're catching the ball, high man wins. High point the ball. Every receiver DB matchup. Some of the best defensive backs in the league. High school, college, NFL. You'll notice the greats. They're going up there. They're turning themselves into receivers. They're not just letting the receiver jump and catch it and then hope they can get a hand in and knock the ball out. You have to realize you're playing against NFL receivers. These dudes were also the best of the best. So even a guy who's a relative unknown in a sense at the NFL level should be able to make that catch. If you basically don't really defend him, if you aren't on him and you're just letting him jump, some dude that's probably 6'3", 6'4", and you're just letting him jump and catch and get two hands on the ball, and you're just hoping and praying that if I get an arm in, I can jar the ball out, that's not good defensive play. A lot of times we see dudes get away with that, right? They get all this praise because, shit, in all honesty, they're getting lucky. Whenever I've coached, the DBs I've coached, you go up there, get the ball. Even if you're not going for the pick, right? I only tell my dudes to go for a pick if it's straight up, you find yourself in a situation where you're the receiver, where you have the leverage, where you have the better positioning than the wide receiver. But if that's not the case, if he goes up, I need you to go up. You should be going up to contest that ball. Miami, Ohio, it was a difficult game to watch because all you saw was their receivers high point the ball, high point the ball, high point the ball. They were, I want to say that first half, they were killing us. Right when you think, oh, third down, we're finna get a stop. Nope. Hits a dude down the seam, and all you see is the receiver just make this beautiful catch, because guess what? He went up and got the ball. It's that simple. So, NIU offensively, we got some things that just have to be worked on offense. It's that simple. We got things that have to be worked on offense. But the thing is, like, everybody who watches and knows this team and this program, when you see us put up points, that lets you know clearly we're capable. The problem is becoming, we'll put up these points, and then it's almost like we act like, or it's like we forgot how we got there, how we got ourselves into the position to put up those points. I sat here and watched the game today. NIU was up on Central Michigan early, quick. I'm talking about when we were at 19 points in the first quarter. 19 in the first quarter? I was taken back to my college days. I was like, oh, we're back in 2011. We're back in 2010, 2011, 2012, right? Where this team knows how to score. I was like, oh, this might be one of those games. We might drop a 40 piece on Central Michigan today. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Right? What was this false hope. Right? Because we go from scoring at will to it turning into Central Michigan is about to make a comeback. And I'm like, thank God we have the defense we have, because they're able to lock in and hold these dudes, right? We went into halftime 21-16. I think that's what we went into the halftime at, 21-16. Came out second half, Central Michigan has scored another point, which is amazing. Central Michigan did not score another point. Beautiful, great, exactly how it should be. Problem becomes, well, Central Michigan didn't score another point, but yeah, we didn't score any more touchdowns either. I think what was the final score of this game I just watched? The fact that I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just watched this game, and I'm sitting here like, tragic. I want to say final score was what, 19 to, because we scored a field goal, they scored a field goal, if I remember correctly. I want to say it was the game, essentially, it was an 8-point game. The differential was 8 points. And I'm pretty sure it had to have been, I don't know what my brain is shutting down on me right now. Did Central Michigan get 19? Or did they still sit at 16? Now I'm kind of confused a little bit, because I'm like, wait. I know at one point it was 21-16. And that was just a really weird score to look at, because you're like, how the hell did that happen? 21-16. I just know it was an 8-point game. That's all I remember. And I was like, let NIU give up a touchdown and then give up the 2-point conversion, and now we're in overtime, and then now we lose the game. But defense held. Yeah. We have a new offensive coordinator, but we don't have one. We're going to be looking for a new offensive coordinator. And I think that's perfect. That, like, in reality, that's kind of perfect, right? Because I still believe NIU needs to get the hell out of the MAC. The thing is, your two most realistic options need to be the AAC or the PAC. as much as people may not want to hear it or believe it, if the pack, like I said, if the pack gets a decent media rights deal, NIU will actually be able to join as a full member, whether you want to believe it or not. If the pack gets like if they get a $6 million payout for their teams, that one's gonna be a little rough, but it's doable. It's gonna be cutting it real close, but it's doable. It's doable. It's gonna cut it real close. But once that number goes up, right? Let's say that payout ends up $8 million. If that payout's $8 million a year, then it don't make sense for NIU to not join as a full member. As a full member. People don't realize you're only going to have 4 home games and 4 away games when it comes to football. You just got to charter the flights for those 4 away games, which will be doable if you know you have a check of $8 million coming. It doesn't even cost, it won't even cost you $1 million for those flights. It don't cost that. Like, people, I feel like people are assuming it's going to cost a fortune to charter these flights. No. NIU, DeKalb, has proven once already, right? We've proven once already. You can land a plane, you can charter a flight into DeKalb. And I'll never forget, because it was the Orange Bowl. That plane landed at our local airfield. It wasn't like they had to fly into the city or fly, O'Hara Midway and then bus all the... No. The plane was in DeKalb. Our guys got on the plane. We flew down to Florida, played the game, came back. You would be doing that 4 times. And you hire people to do those logistics. You hire people to get all that done. In all honesty, we're talking about a flight or 4 flights that at the most, I would think at the most, should only end up running you $500,000, potentially less. $500,000 or less. And that's what people don't realize. It does not cost as much as folks may be thinking it cost to charter those flights. The big thing is, well, yeah, that's just football. That's 4 games. What about basketball? Okay, if we're doing basketball, you now just have to think about it like this. Does the basketball team require the same size plane as the football team? No. So let's think about this. I'm not saying the university buys a jet. I'm not saying that. Maybe one day we can get to that point where, yeah, maybe we do or something, right? But you charter all these flights, right? You just wouldn't have to get a huge, like, you wouldn't have to get you don't need a 747 or whatever. Like, no, you wouldn't need that for the basketball team. We're talking about the players and the coaches. You probably would only need a plane that's seating about a good 40 people or so. So you wouldn't need super huge. We know that for a fact. We know that one for a fact. You would not need super huge. We're talking about literally, if we know the team, like we know the team probably has what, I'm assuming 15 players, right? I'm sitting here trying to think about this. I'm like, we probably got 15 players, right? We got our starting 5. We got those backups, and you got a couple extra dudes. So we're talking about 15 players on the team itself. And then we're talking about the coaches, right? So we're talking about the coaches. You're talking about training staff, yeah. So, I mean, reality, shoot. You might only really need a 30 passenger, something that's a 30 passengers. You wouldn't even need super huge. You just might need 30 passenger, something that's, 30 passengers. That's going to cost even less than the plane you're chartering for the football team. That's going to cost significantly less than the plane you're chartering for the football team. Those planes exist. They're out there. If we're in a conference, once again, if we're in a conference that's cutting us a check for $8 million a year, I've now covered my football team's travel. I should be able to cover basketball, and we're doing both for men's and women's, right? I should be able to cover, all right, so let's think about my baseball team. Long story short, like I said, this is what we know we're doing. We just know we're covering stuff for all the sports. If we get a check for $8 million, we have enough money to. If somebody, and I'm pretty sure somebody has, if somebody can run the numbers for how much it would cost to charter a flight across the board for football, men's and women's basketball, baseball and softball, first, here's the other thing. It probably just also depends on what do we consider all sports. Are we adding golf in there? Are we adding soccer in there? Are we adding wrestling? Or are we talking about football, clearly, men's and women's basketball, baseball, softball? Pretty sure we're talking about volleyball, probably talking about gymnastics as well, right? I can see those. But once we start getting into, golf, wrestling, and that's the thing. I know we have a good wrestling program. So I would want wrestling to be a part of that. Then again, I would just want, in all honesty, I would want wrestling to be a part of whichever conference is the strongest, if we're being honest. So maybe the Pacific Athletic Conference, when it comes to wrestling, isn't the best move. Maybe we stay where we are. Maybe we move, right, Big 12 or big, whatever we're in. I forget where we are. I don't know if we're in the MAC. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, wrestling. But I know we have a pretty solid wrestling program. We're decent. But when it comes to those sports, like I said, if we're getting an $8 million check, it don't make no sense. If I can cover the travel for all of my sports, for $2 million, and you're giving me a check for $8 million, that leaves $6 million, right? We're doing basic math. I was going to say algebra. This ain't even algebra. We're doing like elementary math. We're doing basic addition and subtraction. If I got an $8 million check coming and I could cover all of the travel for $3 million, that's leaving me how much money? Oh, that's leaving me $5 million. People have to understand, our fan base has to understand, that is $5 million that we would have taken. It would have taken NIU being in the MAC. That is literally that's a nice chunk of years. Put it like that. That'd have been a nice chunk of years it would have taken. Football, keep in mind, football's the only program where when you travel, you have to send, you're shipping your equipment, right? So that's typically truck. And then you have the guys, they're getting on the bus or the plane, whichever one, right? But we know there's also a truck, right? We got our guys are shipping them. We got our guys moving our stuff, right? So we'll still need to do that. And they would be going a further distance than they did before. They would be doing that. But I'm also fairly certain, like I said, these things are doable. I'm pretty sure, I don't think our football team flew to North Carolina this season. I'm pretty sure they busted out. They hopped in the buses and they went to North Carolina. They played the game. And then they hopped in the buses and went back home. That's how it goes down. You join the pack. Yeah, things change a little bit. Things change a little bit. The closest team to us would be Colorado State in that sense. So now you're thinking, okay, could we actually bust to Colorado State, or is that just worth flying? You probably could bust to Colorado State. That one we could probably just bust to. The rest of those games, more than likely you're flying. You're not busing from DeKalb, Illinois to San Diego. You're flying. You're not taking a bus from DeKalb, Illinois to Oregon State, to Washington State, to Boise State. No. We're going to be honest. But like I said, the key takeaway I need people to understand, NIU, repeat, NIU should be looking to finagle their way into whether it's the Pacific Athletic Conference or the American Athletic Conference, depending on what happens to them. We should be looking at those two conferences, communicating with who we need to communicate with, this, that, the third. That's what we should be doing. Right? The pack, still to this moment, still to this day. And here's the other part people need to understand and realize. Boise State and all those schools, they don't join the pack next year. There is still a whole nother season, right? There's still a whole nother year. So Boise State, Colorado State, all of those schools, if I remember correctly, will still be in the Mountain West next season. That move does not take place until 2026. Right? So that means we're still going to have the 2025 season and then the 2026. I'm assuming come around the end of, whenever the end of the football season happens, is when you technically will begin the transition for football as members of the pack. Whenever basketball ends, you'll begin the transition, or maybe basketball starts earlier. I don't know. All right, but whenever basketball season ends, right, we know March Madness, right? Whenever that ends, that's when you begin transitioning then your basketball program over. We know baseball would be or should be going at that point, right? You begin transitioning at the end of their season after the College World Series or whatever, or the tournament, I forget what it's called, right? You start transitioning the baseball team over to the new conference, right? All of these sports. So you have to keep in mind, that's the other thing people forget. We saw the Pac and Mountain West make whatever moves they needed to make, but they made the moves they needed to make just to get to 8 full members. That's what was important. Now they can take a little break, plan their next steps, and then make their next moves. But you have to realize there's no rush. There's not a super rush to do so. I don't see any of these, right? The Pac has to, repeat, the Pacific Athletic Conference has to add more members. They only have 7 football members. They have 8 full members, but only 7 football teams. You at least need 9 to run a damn schedule. So how, you get what I'm saying? So we know the Pac is going to add more. The thing is, who are they going to add? I don't believe that they're going to be going the FCS route. The Pacific Athletic Conference wouldn't even merge with the Mountain West. Washington State and Oregon State literally were petty enough to be like, no, we're not going to just forget that the Pacific Athletic Conference ever existed, and we're just going to abandon it and, right, we know we say merge, but join, right? It really would have been them two joining the Mountain West. That's what it really would have been. And it's kind of funny because when you look at their schedule, it's fucking hilarious to me. You look at their schedule, that's all they've been playing. The Pac has just been playing Mountain West schools. Oregon and Washington State have literally just been playing Mountain West teams all year long. Yet they refused to just join the damn conference because they were like, there's too much history, there's too much this, there's too much that. We're not willing to abandon that and just let that brand go, yada, yada, yada. I get it. I get it. I get it. Because it would have been no different if it was like, this is the Big Ten, right? And it's, so you got to think about it like this. I'm not 100% sure how long the Pac has been around. I feel like it's been around for a nice chunk of time. Like, don't get me wrong. I do feel like it's been around for probably a nice chunk of time. Unlike the Big 12, right? The Big 12, if I remember correctly, the Big 12 hasn't been around for a million years, right? The Big 12 itself was somewhat young-ish compared to most power conferences, right? When you look at the ACC, when you look at the SEC, the Big 10, the Pac, and the Big 12, quote me, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure the Big 12 was the youngest of those 5. I'm pretty sure Big 12 had to have been the youngest of those conferences. So sadly, it's not a shock to me when you see Texas and Oklahoma walk away like it ain't shit. Right? Literally, the Big 12 and Texas and Oklahoma, in my eyes, like, those two things were synonymous. Like, those two schools and teams are the conference. Like, this is your conference. But that just goes to show SEC had all the money. SEC had the money. So they were willing to bounce. Big 12 needed they were trying to figure out some stuff where the money, things wasn't going the way they should have. So yeah, which is kind of sad because I'm pretty sure that's the same thing that basically went down with the Pac, right? That's what it sounds like. That's what it seems like when we think about what happened to the Big 12 and why they ended up the way they ended up with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. And I can say that they bounced back kind of, sort of decently in the sense that you lost 2, but you brought in, I mean, because the Pac did what it did, it turned into a win for the Big 12. I don't think anybody's seen that really going that way. It was like the timing just worked really well for the Big 12 because they were then now able to add 4 more schools to strengthen their conference. So kudos to them for acting swiftly because, like I said, you just added to your footprint geographically, right? It's not like you went and added schools that were just way out of left field, even though, right, you still got West Virginia, which always seemed odd to me. You got UCF, Cincinnati. I mean, those three are the only three in that conference that are just kind of like, but I don't complain about that because having those three schools, let me not complain, right? Having those three schools give me hope for NIU because I'm like, Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF are in the Big 12. Like, let's think about that. Cincinnati is just kind of on this, right? If anything, adding Cincinnati finally gave West Virginia somebody at least nearby, which is another excuse of a reason to be like, add NIU and y'all can now have Iowa State, Kansas, NIU, Cincinnati, West Virginia, right? But we know that's not going to happen. But yeah. Oregon State and Washington State not being willing to just move on from the pack is what created all of this. And the sad reality is this. At the end of the day, the pack is going to get a decent deal. They're going to have a better deal than the Mountain West. I've said it a bajillion times now. They're going to have a better deal than the Mountain West. Going back to a thought I was having before, and I know I'll go off on a tangent. Thought I was having before literally was, this is better timing than we realize to join a new conference. Come in with a fresh start. New offensive coordinator, right? You're still going to have Coach Hammock, and you need Coach Hammock. I know there are people who are like, what in the actual hell? Yada, yada, yada. Like, no. Yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, this is what you have to realize. Having Coach Hammock, right, when you have your head coach be somebody who played for the program, right, who truly is loyal to the school and the program, right? He truly wants to see that success. Right? You can't like, people have to understand, like, yes, do we want him to do better? Do we want the team to win conference championships? Yes, we do. Why does having Coach Hammock work? This is the reason why. I don't think you beat Notre Dame without Coach Hammock. And I know that sounds crazy. That sounds like I'm giving him a lot of credit. But I don't think you beat a Notre Dame without Thomas Hammock as the head coach. Why? Because he's the head coach, you have this huge senior class of guys who have been committed to him and this program. Let that sink in. You have a huge senior class of guys who came in as freshmen and have truly been committed to him and the program all those years, because he's truly invested in him. I mean, he's truly invested in them. So they're willing to run through a wall for him. Straight up. You can tell he loves the players and the players love him. Being honest. There was a point in time, right? It seems odd, it seems weird, it seems kind of crazy, right? There was a point in time, I think it was it Ontario Brown's freshman year? I want to say it was Ontario's freshman year, right? So we had Ontario, we had Jay Ducker, we had a couple of running backs, right? It seems kind of crazy that you still end up with what seems like this huge senior class of dudes who literally came and stayed. But then you also have a year where it's like, it seemed like dudes were transferring left and right. So it seems kind of odd, but it's like, it just goes to show, like, he really was able to get these guys in. And the guys that were committed, who were willing to put in the work, who were willing to see things through, they stayed. They won a MAC championship. And I mean, yeah, of course, I know they wish they could have gone out with another MAC championship. But it's like, dude, like, they're going to be the only NIU team. I mean, let me not jinx this, but they can go down and be like, we beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame while they were ranked number 5, who had just went and beat Texas A&M. Right? I know we got teams that can say, you know, we beat Iowa. We got teams that can say, you know, we beat the hell out of Purdue. We beat Nebraska at Nebraska, right? We got guys that can say, you know, I beat Georgia Tech. I beat Northwestern. We know we got those guys. We got guys who can go as far back and be like, I beat Maryland, Alabama, and like, you know, we know we got guys who can say all those, and those were ranked teams that they beat that year. But to beat the number 5 ranked team in the nation, and it just so happened to be Notre Dame, just feels a lot like that's special. Because Notre Dame is always, it doesn't matter whether Notre Dame's coming off a bad year, a good year, a 6-6 season. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. Every year, their fan base is going to be expecting a championship. Every year, they're going to get top viewership. Every year, they're going to recruit a top 25 class, right? It's Notre Dame. It's one of the most storied teams in all of college football. And we beat them. We beat them. It's that simple. We beat them. The only other win I can think of that we can say holds that level of weight that's up there, that's remotely close, you could essentially say the year we beat Iowa, and that was the year that if we would have, oh my God, that's the ultimate what if season, right? We're sitting here now saying that this season, this 7-5 season, will be a what if season. Yes, it will. It will, because we raised the bar that damn high. That's a what if season, but the true what if season is always going to be NIU beating Iowa, NIU running the table, NIU making it to the MAC championship, and then losing. Because if NIU wins that game, we are now in a second BCS Bowl, 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. And the world may be a completely different place today for NIU football. If NIU wins that MAC the second time and then makes it to that damn bowl game, who knows what would have happened? Does the Big 12 call? And we work some things out, and now all of a sudden NIU's in the damn Big 12? And they're like, we see what you all have done with your program. We get it. You don't have that. Like, here's what I always say to people. The conference elevates the team. The conference elevates the team. So in saying that, I understand. I really do. I understand why Oregon State, Washington State want to keep that branding that is the Pacific Athletic Conference, because the conference elevates the team. The Pac They won't be a power conference come 2026. No, right? They would have had to gotten, Arizona State, Arizona, get those two back, get Utah back, still BYU or something, get Stanford and Cal back, right? They would have had to pull off something like that. They would have had to pull off something like that. They would have had to got some of their schools back and then got a new deal with somebody, and their payout, may have been the same amount as the Big 12, maybe even a little less, maybe 20 mil or something, right? And they would have taken it and been fine with it and called it a day and kept moving on with life. Then you could say the Pac is a power conference. But even if the Pac gets a number, if the Pac can get to an 8 mil payout, if the Pac can get to a 10 mil payout, if you're now paying these schools $10 million, if you got your schools bringing in 10 mil a year and y'all got a 6-year contract, you're telling me simple math, right? Simple math. 6 times 10 is $60 million. NIU has never seen that type of money. So that's why I'm saying the conference elevates the school. If NIU is bringing in over a span of 6 years, $60 million, $60 million, you telling me, other than elevating the teams, of course, right? We got to pay for transportation, yada, 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 right? So let's say instead of 10 mil, let's really say 8 mil. 8 mil after you cover travel expenses and all that fun stuff. We got 8 mil coming in. You got 8 mil coming in. So you have $48 million in your war chest. You got $48 million in your war chest. You telling me that if Northern Illinois University are branding, marketing, all those things, and I use a part of the Pacific Athletic Conference, not, we're in the MAC. We're in just good old Maction Tuesday night football. No, we're in the Pacific Athletic Conference. We're competing against schools like Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State. I mean, yeah, is that as prestigious as saying, yeah, we're playing against USC, UCLA, and yeah, it's not. But the money changes things. The money changes things. I can promise you, you're going to start seeing a few recruits willing to look at NIU who probably may have not looked at NIU before. Right? Like I said, if you got an $8 million check or a $10 million check coming in, you can now start taking out loans for stuff that you may not have been able to do before to get some things built, to get some things done. We can work on that stadium, right? We can now work on some athletic facility upgrades. We can work on some things. We can have some money to potentially pay some players. It changes the town. The DeKalb itself should start changing because you have this money coming through from the university that you did not have before. People got to understand that stuff. That money that you see in the Big Ten and the SEC is the reason why those schools, like, don't get me wrong, those schools built their brands decades ago, right? They've been able to build their brands decades ago, right? And I posted something a week or two ago that went over a lot of the Florida school enrollment, and I was sitting there and I'm like, how the hell did UCF rise so quickly? Like, UCF only joined the FBS back in How the hell did UCF go from FCS to FBS to one point they were in the MAC, right? MAC, then I think Conference USA, and then AAC, and now in the Big 12. How the hell did UCF pull that off? And then, of course, I go do some research, right? Because we always talk about enrollment, attendance numbers, da-da-da-da. I come to find out and learn, like, the whole damn state of Florida, it barely costs anything to go to school in Florida. I'm like, the amount you're paying per credit hour is so damn low, it's not even funny. No wonder their enrollment is ridiculously high. No wonder. When I'm paying $100-something per credit hour, and that's it. So I can go to school, give me a whole degree, give me a whole master's, and barely be in any debt. Yeah, my school's enrollment is gonna be 50,000 students, 60,000 students. No duh. And that goes for UCF, that goes for Florida, that goes for Florida International. It goes for all of those schools down there are doing that. They're all down there. And I know we can get into politics, we can get into this, that, the third. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, if NIU don't cut the attendance, if they don't cut the cut the number. Illinois State has higher enrollment than NIU. Illinois State cost per credit hour is also lower than NIU's. NIU, how about you be competitive, drop your number just below Illinois State's, spend some money on branding and marketing, because at the end of the day, people may think that NIU, our name, the brand, the school, people in Illinois know about NIU. It's not about people in Illinois knowing about NIU. It's more about high school students knowing about NIU and wanting to go to NIU and seeing. And Illinois State, sadly, at the end of the day, has more name awareness. Like, they have more brand awareness than NIU does. And all I can do is sit here and be like, how? NIU is closer to Chicago than Illinois State is. Yet you end up with kids from Chicago going down to normal Illinois rather than go to DeKalb. They would rather go downstate than go to. But I'm almost 1,000% certain a huge part of that is the cost of admission. You're gonna get a few more kids attending your school at the end of the day when it costs less money. It costs less money. Can NIU drop their admissions numbers, their enrollment, their cost per credit hour, and all that fun stuff? Could they afford to drop it to the same thing as what's going on in Florida? I'm pretty sure no. But hear me out. If they were willing to take the risk, take the chance, willing to try it out, just willing to see what the hell would actually happen, I would be shocked. I would be truly shocked if you still saw more people choose to go to Illinois State, to UIC, to U of I, to Eastern, Western, Southern, still choose to go there, even though the cost per credit hour at NIU is, with fees and everything, is $275. It would be insane, because you're telling me you're still willing to pay more money to go over there. We're literally giving you the best budget and value education you could get, because our commitment at the end of the day, if you want to sell it, right? I'm giving y'all some ideas. If you want to sell it, we care about educating the residents of Illinois. So staying true to that, we care about educating our people. So why should your education put you in $100,000 debt? Just sell it like that. For XYZ NIU for the next 2 years, right? Where we're doing a test. For the next 2 years, NIU is dropping the price for blah, blah, blah. Like I said, the $300, yada, yada, yada. The dorms prices are dropping. Everything is dropping. You gonna sit here and tell me you ain't about to see an uptick in enrollment? You're gonna see an uptick in enrollment. You're gonna see an uptick in enrollment. Because I can promise you at the end of the day, there's people who probably had the test scores and the grades and all that stuff to get into NIU. But the price at the end of the day, it came down between, well, I wanna major in education. NIU or ISU. They chose ISU. You ask them what was the biggest factor. Well, ISU, you know, they have a good teaching program. I mean, NIU got a pretty decent teaching program too, but I mean, ISU costs less. You can't, at the end of the day, money is a factor. Money's a factor. So like I said, you got a UCF that is rise through the ranks. They were able to build, I mean, they're in Orlando as well. You know, it's like not act like they're not in a major city. All right, they're in Orlando. But they were able to build up their whole program in no time flat. And now they're in a power conference. And they're not even doing good in the Big 12. They didn't have a good season last season. They didn't have a good season this season. The head coach, Gus Malzahn, he didn't left. He's finna go be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. And here's NIU. Stuck in the MAC. Forever. So like I said, I mean, we still need to move. If we get a new offensive coordinator, we can take that and go into a new conference. And in all honesty, I mean, like I said, we're going into a new conference. Whatever tape they got on us from the prior season is now irrelevant because we're basically looking like a completely new team on offense. Right? Should our offense still be a probably run-dominant offense? Yeah. I can never see NIU not having a run-dominant offense. I would be completely perplexed, mind blown, if I look up 20 years from now and NIU has a top 10 passing offense. Like, I would be shocked. I would be confused because I'm like, when did we make that dramatic of a shift? Right? No. It's a running school. It's a running program. Like, we are known for our running backs. That's what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing is, like I said, we need to get back to an offense, a scheme, whatever that works for what this team is supposed to be. Because like I said, when you go 7-5 or whatever one season, and then you make a bowl game, you win a bowl game, and then you have the biggest win in school history, and you don't capitalize off of that? Like, if things had gone the way they could have and should have gone, we would have been looking at NIU potentially in a damn college football playoff. Instead, it's Boise State. And I have no issue with that. But instead, it's Boise State. Because Boise State, who lost to Oregon, still has been able to beat everybody the whole rest of the season. Versus us, who beat Notre Dame, then went and lost. And lost again. And, like, this team has been too good to lose the way that it has. And everybody who's watched these games will literally tell you that. The defense, outstanding. And in all honesty, like I said, we saw what our defense did to North Carolina State. We saw what our defense did to Notre Dame. We saw what our defense did to, if you want to say, the better teams in the MAC, right? We saw what our defense did against Toledo. We saw what our defense did against Miami, Ohio. We saw what our defense did to Western Michigan. It was not a fluke that the defense was as good as it was. I'm willing to say this team could have played Northwestern this year, and we should win that game. We should win that game. This defense is beating Northwestern. It's the offense that I would have been like, I don't know. We should beat Northwestern. I just don't know. Right? Let's put this defense up against Purdue. We're beating Purdue. Let's put this defense up against U of I. That would have been a fun game. This defense can play against Illinois. People might be looking at me like I'm crazy right now. This defense, we could have played against the U of I. I don't see U of I blowing us out of the water. It would have been a game where U of I probably drops. They probably get maybe a good 3 to 4 touchdowns. The problem would have been, what the hell was our offense going to do? Right? NIU defense holds U of I to 21 points. NIU loses 7-21 because the offense couldn't get going in any type of way. All right, the offense is moving the ball, and then we get to like the 50-yard line and just fall apart. Nothing, like we just can't move the ball forward anymore. And that would have been the story of the game. It hurts my soul. Like I said, NIU, and what we have to realize, there's still a whole year. Because, like I said, those Mountain West schools, I'm pretty sure, do not officially join the Pacific Athletic Conference until the 2026 season. Not the 25-26 season. I believe that they don't join until the 26-27 season. That is when that move happens, which literally means the Pac still has a nice little year to make moves. And like I said, we know that they're going to have to add like 2 more teams. They need 2 more teams. Mountain West Conference, on the other hand, they only really need 1 more team for football. That's all they need. They just need 1 more for football. They have, if I remember correctly, they have, because I'm not doing math right now. They have 8 full members. Actually, no, they have 8 because they had 12. They lost 5. Oh, no, wait. Hold on. I think I'm looking at this wrong. They had 12. Lost 5. They had them at 7. They added, oh no, I'm tweaking. They added UTEP. So they're at 8. And then you also had Hawaii join as a full, be able to go from football only to full membership. So just with those 8 alone, right there at full membership. But then they also added Grand Canyon University, I believe, as a full member, but they don't have a football team. So it's the same thing as Gonzaga joining the Pac, right? So they have 9 schools, only 8 have football. Mountain West needs just 1 more. They just need 1 more. And they're back to, regular football scheduling. All you need is 9 football teams to run an 8-game schedule. That's it. You just need 9. Everybody will play each other once. You will probably still have your conference championship between the 2 best schools, and that's it. You're done. Pac, on the other hand, they had 2. They added 5. Right, we're doing some elementary math right now. So we're at 7. They added Gonzaga as a full member. So they have 8 full members, which keeps them a conference. The problem is they only have 7 football teams. And at the end of the day, football is king. So they need two more football teams. Like, they need 2 more football teams. People are going to have to look at who is the Pack going to go after. The Pack needs to figure out their media rights deal. It's that simple. And either they get a tentative number, I guess that's based on either A, the schools they currently have, or B, it'll go based on the schools that they could potentially get. Like, if they run the numbers and whatever happens, and it's like, what happens with the with the Pack if we add NIU, Toledo, and Texas State for football, right? We now have a 10 conference, a 10 team football conference. We have 11 total, but we got 10 for football. Yeah, 11 for basketball, with Gonzaga being pretty strong of an addition. 10 for football, 11 for basketball. Right. If they get some number back, that's like, yeah, your payout will be 8 mil, 10 mil, whatever, right? But it's based on them, contingent on them landing those particular schools, right? Or maybe it's like, well, okay, what does our number look like if we can get UTSA, Tulsa, Memphis, Tulane, right? These particular schools. If we can get Tulane, because like I said, I don't see a world where the Pack isn't going after, like, if they're going after Memphis, then Tulane's definitely got to be on that list. Like, I can't envision them not going after Tulane as well. But I also, like, the potential's too high. The potential is too high. If the Pack takes the 7 football teams they have right now, with potentially Boise State and Washington State being, I guess, in that conference. So, like, if Boise State and Washington State, as of today, even though we know those 5 schools are still in the Mountain West, if those schools were in the Pack right now, Boise State and Washington State would be your 2 strongest teams, hands down. But you can't tell me that if you add Tulane, Memphis, let's say you're trying to get to 12. If you're trying to get to 12, you need to add another 5. Tulane, Memphis, you're going to want a school from Texas. So let's say they even go and add Texas State or UTSA or Rice. I don't know. All right. UTSA, Memphis, Tulane, NIU, and Toledo. You can't tell me that they ain't getting a decent payout. That conference is getting a decent payout. That conference is getting a decent payout. It is. It's getting a decent payout. For sure. You're getting a decent payout. Like, people got to realize, people got to remember, this is the same conference that tried to add UConn. And I think they tried to add UConn, not as a football-only member. They were trying to add UConn as a full member. They were like, UConn, we want you. Leave the Big East. Join us for football, basketball, all sports. UConn turned her down. It was like, nah, we're not making that move right now. They went after Memphis. Why Memphis? Because Memphis was giving them a good football team, a good basketball team. Right? It was giving them multiple good teams. And it's also centrally located in a good media market. It is. So it would have worked for them. Memphis turned them down. Then you got Gonzaga. Like I said, because the Pack is going to spin the block. NIU fans, y'all can say what y'all want to say. This is not 40 years ago. It's not. I promise you it's not. 40 years ago when NIU did what it did, the money was not the same. The money wasn't the same. When the money is what it is today, it changes everything. It's not about your attendance. It's not about your enrollment. As long as you can get into the conference and the money's coming through, that's what they care about. In NIU's case, the conference will elevate the school. It will. It will. You get to recruit completely differently when you got money coming through. You can recruit differently now when you got money coming through. The alum base is gonna, we're alumni, right? The alumni base is gonna get a bit excited. Them contributions are probably gonna go up a bit because it's not just gonna be MAC anymore. We're gonna be playing against some real teams. We're gonna be in a bit more serious of a conference. But like I said, we do need to see what happens with the PAC. We got to see what happens with the PAC. If the PAC gets a good media rights deal that's contingent on them adding on, right? If they get something in writing and they can go show these schools and it's like, look, Memphis, Tulane, yada, 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 yada. We can give y'all $12 million a year, which I want to say would be almost double what they're getting in the AAC right now. Those schools aren't going to turn that down. The prayer would be NIU can make it onto that list. But like I said, option B, if the PAC steals these schools from American Athletic Conference and elsewhere, then that's going to open up availability in the American Athletic Conference. And then that's when NIU should be trying to get itself into that conference, because they will have, and they do have already, a better media rights payout than the MAC does. So saying this for the last time, let me not say that, not the last time, but saying this for the last time for a while, like I said, we're at 7-5. I would have loved us to finish 8-4. But we're 7-5. At the end of the day, it's a winning season. We got the biggest win in school history. We got the biggest win in conference history. We got the biggest win. Like, I don't want to say it's the biggest upset of all time, but I mean, it's a pretty big win because nobody on earth had NIU beating Notre Dame. Like, let's be honest. Nobody on earth had that happening. We don't have the money behind us. We don't have all sorts of things behind us. Yet we still went out on that field that day, did what we did, and that's in the history books, and nobody can take that from us. It is that simple. That simple. NIU to the Mountain West should be a no. And I think it is a no. That's the reason why we haven't heard anything. What I'm hoping and praying is happening is NIU is positioning itself or trying to or communicating to join the PAC because they see the potential that could be there with the PAC. And I mean that as a full member. I don't think we're going to be moving to do anything, as a partial football only member. We should be trying to move full member. We join the PAC. We're elevating ourselves. That should start bringing in some changes. Whether that be coaching changes, whether that be this change, that change, it should change a lot of things. Right? Some of those kids who are getting recruited by U of I, Northwestern, Big Ten schools, we should start to be able to potentially snag some of them. Right? We should be able to snag some of those players. And then coaching-wise, we probably should be able to snag a coach because we'll have some money. We should be able to snag a coach who can lead us to a better outcome, who can recruit, who can do some things. Right? Our football program. I'm not talking that what I just said wasn't about the football program. That was more about the basketball. That was more about men's basketball than it was about football. Football, we should see some improvements, hands down, right? A lot of things will change in a positive way. But like I said, the fan base, like, we can't be afraid, scared, looking in the past. Yes, when you look at the past, NIU was trying to be a trailblazer. We were trying to go out and do something because at that point in time, we potentially saw where it could lead us. But the problem was, it seems like we just weren't there yet. Now the landscape has changed, and this is what I've been preaching to people. The landscape is different. The landscape is different. We got folks dwelling on, look at what happened in the past, yada, yada, yada. Do you not realize and see that USC is in the Big Ten? UCLA is in the Big Ten? Oregon, Washington? We're talking about schools that nobody, in what reality did anybody think that would happen? Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. Maybe some people could say that they saw that coming, but not really. Like Stanford and Cal and SMU are in the ACC. Arizona State, Arizona, BYU, Colorado, Cincinnati, UCF are in the Big 12. Those changes and movements did not happen because, we wanted to move to this. No. It's all purely money. It is purely money. Money is what led to those moves. You have to understand this. USC does not leave the pack if the pack has the media rights deal that's going to get them all those schools to stay. That was the problem. Nobody was going to pay the pack what they were asking for. And once the writing was on the wall, those schools were gone. And it's crazy to think, like, that's all it takes. All it takes is a media rights deal not being the number that you believe it should be, and your whole conference can collapse just like that. But that's the reality of the world we're in. Does this mean no money exists? No, that's not what that means. Money exists. It's just, are these networks trying to drop the amount of billions that you want them to drop? Because they probably aren't. The only two conferences that are going to get that type of money are the SEC and Big Ten at this point. The ACC is going to get a nice check. The Big 12 is going to get what it's going to get. But the SEC and the Big Ten, if we're playing Monopoly right now, they own, those two alone own half of the board. It's just everybody else trying to fight for the little scraps that's left over. Those two own themselves half of the board. Maybe even more than half of the board. That's the type of money that they got coming in. Right? That's what you got to understand. They have that type of money. NIU has to put themselves in a position to elevate the university. Whether that be, at the end of the day, we're saying that we need the football team and its success. We need to parlay that into raising our status, because the damn team has done a lot for 2 decades, 20 years. We've seen this team perform. If we can't get something out of that, that's crazy. That means either we don't got the right people in charge, we're not pushing, we're not trying to. But this is now the time where it has to happen. Because after these moves happen, I don't see a whole lot more happening. I don't see the SEC expanding a whole ton more. I don't see the Big Ten expanding a whole ton more. The only thing I can see, right, you'll see a few more shifts. Very, very few. Because Memphis and Tulane are on the bubble. Like those two, I don't envision them staying in the AAC forever. Like they're going to end up in a power conference. If I remember correctly, Tulane was once in the SEC. So I don't know if Tulane ends up back in the SEC. Most likely Tulane will end up in the Big 12. I think that's where a lot of people saw Tulane and Memphis ending up, was the Big 12. But then you saw the Big 12 go and add 4 schools that I don't think anybody was, like Colorado, Utah, Arizona State. I think that they potentially took the spots that Tulane and Memphis were slated for. So now you got the ACC. Where could some of these schools end up? They could end up in the ACC. Why? Because I do think you got schools that are going to leave the ACC and join the SEC. Look at how many schools that the Big 10 has. Look at how many schools the SEC has. Shit, look at how many schools the Big 12 has. So the ACC might lose maybe 2, 3, 4 schools. They might lose anywhere from 2 to 4 schools. And those schools are going to go to the SEC, which technically will open up some spots in the ACC. And that's where you can end up seeing, that's when you'll see these last final shifts. But right now, NIU is not at the level where we're shifting from the MAC to a power conference. It doesn't work that way. It's a step. You got to take steps. We should be going from the MAC to trying to go to the PAC or the AAC. And if we can get into either one of those, and if we can have success in either one of those, then maybe, just maybe, we can put our name into a hat and end up in the Big 12, end up in the ACC. Big 10 won't happen. SEC definitely won't ever happen. That doesn't even make sense. But could NIU end up in the ACC? I would never. I'm not gonna say it's impossible. I'm not gonna say that one. It's a very, the odds are lower than the. I would say the NIU has lower odds to end up in the ACC than they do the Big 12. The Big 12 is the most favorable landing spot if NIU ever joins a power conference. The Big 12 is the spot that makes the most sense for us. The ACC, the thing with the ACC is just kind of weird. But if the ACC loses XYZ schools and they're, for some odd reason, they're like, let's see who's available. NIU's been doing really good. We could work with them. Why not? Right? But the odds are low. Like I said, Big 12, I feel like there's a higher shot of the Big 12 than the ACC. But like I said, if you had to rank them, Big 12 number 1, ACC would be second. Big 10 technically third. SEC will never happen. But Big 10 ain't gonna happen either. Like it's just not. So Big 12, ACC, there's like a 1% chance. If the Big 12, there's a 5% chance. The ACC, there's a 1% chance. But like I said, never say never. There's steps. There's steps. NIU has to. They have to move from the MAC and position themselves in one of the better group of conferences, which is the AAC, and at this point it'll be the PAC. The Mountain West, you could say at one point, was one of the stepping stones to a power conference, right? You had TCU come from the Mountain West. Technically, you can say, no, you had TCU came from the Mountain West. Utah came from the Mountain West. BYU was in the Mountain West at one point. And even though they went independent, right, we now see that they're in a power conference. So the Mountain West has, like, people like to view, oh, that's just a lateral move. I'm like, no, it's not. The Mountain West is better than the MAC. Like, If the Mountain West were not better than the MAC, then why is the Mountain West making more money? Why do they have more money than the MAC? Like, that doesn't make sense. We can't call it lateral, but they're making millions more than us, right? That just goes to show you that they're clearly at they're at a higher tier than the MAC. The American Athletic Conference, higher tier than the MAC. And the crazy part is NIU could compete in these conferences. I would put NIU, if NIU played in the American Athletic Conference this season, they probably finish 7-5 again. If NIU plays in the Mountain West, we probably finish 7-5. NIU can play in these conferences. They could. The only benefit would be we at least are finally making some money for being a decent damn team. Like, we got to get there. Peace.